Thank you very much for coming to the session this morning. My name is Yoko Ishikura. I'm a professor emeritus of Hitotsubashi University in Tokyo, and I'll be talking about the innovative perspective women can bring to the board. Currently, I'm on the board of 4 companies, which is a little too much. And as a matter of fact, I did the board meeting yesterday morning at 3:30 in the morning, because we had to report the quarterly results, and that was taking place in Japan. And I just wanted to make sure that what are the kind of things that you can bring to the board. And I think there are board session has been going on for some time, so you may have some questions and so forth. Let me ask you a question first. How many of you serve on the board today, now? Okay. Is that the public companies? Okay. NGOs, NPOs, something like that? Okay. How many of you would like to serve on the board if you get a chance? Okay. We'll find out why. But let me share with you some of the things that I have done and what are the kind of things that I have found out. I used to work for, I'm a professor. I taught at the business school and, MBA program in English, as well as media design, which is much more technology kind of things. And now I'm freelancing, even though my title is Professor Emeritus, because in Japan you need a title. And the first time that I got offered to serve on the board was way, way back, right after I left McKinsey, which is a management consulting firm, and started working as a university professor, because they ask university professors to serve on the board because they are supposed to be objective and have some expertise. And the reason why I decided to serve is because I wanted to find out what's taking place at the board. You make a lot of recommendations as a management consultant. You do things, like research and things like that about business strategy and things, but you really don't know what takes place, how the decision is made. So that's why I decided to join the board of Avon Products of Japan. That was the first exposure. And then I did after I joined the graduate school, I served on the board of Vodafone, which is a UK company. And that was a little bit different as well. And so as I go through all these things, I sort of learned how the boards and how the decisions are made. And then people started calling me, and so I served on the board of Japan Post, which was going through this whole big privatization. And I just happened to know the president of the new organization, and I respected him tremendously. He called me and he said, "Why don't you come on the board?" So I said, well, this is a huge organization going through the privatization, which is like such a big transformation. So I really wanted to see what it's like to do that. And after that, I served on different kinds of industries, such as the shipping, Mitsui OSK Lines, and also Fujitsu, which is an IT company. And right now, I'm on the board of 4 companies. One is consumer goods, Nissin Noodles, food, that makes instant noodles and cup noodles. And I'm also on the board of LifeNet Insurance, that's trying to sell life insurance through internet. This is an entrepreneurial company. And so I wanted to see, I knew the people who started the company, and I wanted to see what it's like. And the third one is the trading company, Sojitsu. And I also wanted to know how the trading works, because trading is important. At the same time, it's so complex and so many businesses. So I just wanted to find out how the decisions are made. And the fourth one is Shiseido. That's a cosmetic company. And probably you are aware of Shiseido. And that was about 9 months ago. So I joined the Shiseido, and it's because that the new CEO called me, and he said that I am in the process of transformation, reforming the company. And so could you join? So I said yes. And it's been a lot of fun. It's quite a challenge. But I think right now, particularly in Japan, we have this governance code enacted. So they have, each public company has to have 2 independent board members, because the board structure or the governance structure of the Japanese corporations were notorious for not being transparent. And also that the board members were like internal members. So they can't really make sort of monitor whatever. And it's very different from the US, for example, or UK for that matter, I believe. So the governance code really pushes, or the forces in the process of forcing the companies to be much more open to the external world and to be much more transparent. And the objective of governance code is, as Christine Lagarde talked about, I mean, Prime Minister Abe is doing a lot of things trying to change the structure of the corporations, trying to make the women participate in the labor market is one. And he also proposes, quote unquote, the big corporations to have at least one female director of the board, whether that's internal or external. That doesn't make too much of a difference. So with that sort of governance code and this big push from the Prime Minister, a lot of women are asked to serve on the board. And so in a way, we do have the follow the wind kind of thing. And so that's a very good opportunity. And in addition to that, I was just looking over my own resume, and I also served as an advisory board for some of the companies such as ANA, that's an airline, and Mazda, that's an auto company. And I also served as an advisor for some of the NPOs, such as Teach for Japan, Table for Two, and things like that. And they don't really meet every month or so, but I am more of like a cheerleader. So whenever they do event and they want to spread the news, I do have a website, and some people do follow. So I talk about, this is what's going on, so why don't you join us? And I may be there, I may not be there, but this is worth it, kind of things. So that's the kind of thing that I do. And I also have been a member of Science Council of Japan. I was the vice president of Science Council of Japan. And that was quite an interesting experience as well, because it's not a board member, but I was one of the 3 vice presidents under the president that I know and I respect tremendously. He's a very vocal guy and outspoken. And they changed the whole structure of Science Council of Japan. It used to be like the group of old, sort of semi-retired, once very famous scientists group. But they wanted to change, so they invited, or they nominated much younger group. And that was when I came in, because I'm not super academic. So, and I'm in the area of business strategy and competitiveness and global talent, which is much closer to the real world rather than the academic per se. I'm more interested in doing things with the relevance rather than just, in theory. And there, we decided this is a great opportunity to change the organization, whether that's nonprofit or whatever. So 3 VPs and the president got together almost every weekend trying to figure out the new vision and the strategy of Science Council in Japan. And we hired, or I sort of convinced one of the young consultants, McKinsey, to join us and just do a lot of work. So that was a very interesting experience, and try to sort of shape the new organization form against all these people, the government officials, which have a much clearer idea of how these things should run. So that was another experience. What I wanted to say, but getting back to this board on the public companies, lately, what I find is that many cases, in the past, in particular, I was the only one woman in the board. And I was one of the few outside members. So everybody else is like Japanese men in 60s or older who have been in that company forever. and we don't have, we tend to have this lifetime employment system. So that these are the people who are so, in a way, insulated from the rest of the world. And I find, like, when you become a board of different companies, you sort of wonder why they do it this way, why they do carry out the board meeting in this way. Sometimes they read out minutes of the past board meeting at the meeting. And I said, I mean, this is kind of waste of time, to say the least. We want to discuss, strategic issues and governance issues and things like that. And we need to have a very good discussion rather than just somebody reading out and just say, this is fine or this is not. So, and the same thing was true with, like, the way they show the documents. They have this, I know one company had all these super detailed tables of numbers. And I said, well, we do have a software which shows all these numbers and the figure, and the graph. It's much easier to follow that. And so I said, well, why do we have all these detailed numbers? And they were talking about this. And always the answers that I get is that this is the way we have been doing. And so, I mean, that's where it is. So in my role, one of my roles is that ask questions. Why do we do it this way? Can we do it that way? Can we do it any other way? And try to push so that they start thinking about, other ways. And sometimes it really does help that I don't necessarily name the companies. But, I mean, other companies, they do it this way, or they do it so and so and so. And that sort of let them start thinking about probably the way that we do is not exactly the only way. Because, I mean, those people who are doing the board meeting have no idea how the board meetings of other companies are done. I mean, naturally. So they think that this is the best way. One thing was that there's this company which is, the big thing is the global strategy. So I said, well, if we are talking about the global strategy, why do we have to have monthly board meeting at the headquarters in Japan? Everybody has to have face-to-face. We have this thing called, teleconference, video conference, and if we are trying to be global, I think it's pretty natural the executives are somewhere else at that time, during the board time. And I really had to push, to my surprise, but they finally did it. And some companies do it very easily, no question about that, but others get very nervous. I mean, it's got to be this way, face-to-face every month at the headquarters and things like that. So that's another thing which I sort of try to push. And another thing which I do, I believe that the perspective that I bring is that I ask a lot of questions. Period. And I ask the questions, like, when I don't understand certain things, when they explain, I just ask questions. Why are we doing so and so and so? Because of so and so reasons. And a lot of times the board meetings are much more sort of ritual rather than the discussion. So, and as I said, most of the members have been there forever. So they take everything for granted. And they know what questions they are not supposed to ask, kind of things. And here I come, and I said, well, why do we do it this way? Is this so and so and so? And they're just kind of like, oh, give me a break. Why did we choose her? Why did we select her to join the board? Too bad. And so that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to do. And with all these things which are taking place, with all the changes that's taking place, I mean, you really cannot take anything for granted today. You have to keep asking questions. I mean, coming back to this whole topic of innovate, in order to innovate, you have to ask provocative questions. And that's, you have to say, well, why? How can we make it better? Kind of things. And that's where I sort of see as my role. ask fundamental questions. It's very simple. I really don't prepare all these fundamental questions. I go through the review, the documents and things like that, but I don't necessarily think about, which fundamental questions do I want to ask. I just ask there on the spot, whatever comes to my mind. So that's another thing. And let's see, what else? I think that's just about all. Another thing is that, as I mentioned, the board seems to be sort of fixed in a way, even though the board needs to deal with a lot of new things, such as technology, such as emerging markets. But those board members are not necessarily are the ones who are up with what's going on today, what's going to happen tomorrow kind of things. And so if we just let them decide on whatever, they can be very much outdated. So I can just suggest, well, some things is going on. And partly because, the reason why I'm here is because I wanted to bring a lot of new things from Dubai and how people think and behave. And I can bring that to my board meetings and say, well, this is where I was, and this is what I found out. So diversity is a big issue, innovation is a big issue, and they with a lot of practical examples and real examples. So sometimes, I can do that, but other times, such as like AI, and all these very technological things, I don't know enough about it. But I can suggest probably we really need to know what's going on. So because it's going to affect our decisions, it has been affecting the consumers. So why don't we bring in some experts as an advisor rather than the board member? And a lot of, I don't know, I'm not sure whether that's typical of Japan or not, but Japanese men, in particular in 60s or over, unless they are very open-minded, exposed to the rest of the world, they feel very threatened. And they just kind of take it, well, do I not know what's going on in the rest of the world kind of thing. But if I suggest it, because I don't understand what's going on, so let's figure out, let's bring in some experts and hear, then I think they may take it a little bit easier rather than coming from other board members. So that's another thing which I do. I will just shut up in a minute, but one thing which is a little bit different from the board per se is that if you are starting up, if you are one of the entrepreneurs, I think as you grow, you need some sort of advice, suggestions of the people who have some experiences of running the bigger organization. Because entrepreneurs and innovative companies are just kind of running around and try to grow. But as you reach certain size, you may need some outside help. Take a look at the Google and all these companies. They hire people from outside once they get bigger. And there you can, rather than having the formal board, which is a little too much, you can have an advisory board. And you can sort of ask around and say, well, can you just help us as a member of the advisory board? And I think that will give a good opportunity for these people who would serve on the board, to the advisory board, to get exposed to what's going on in the entrepreneurial sphere. And at the same time, you get a very good advice as to how you run the bigger organization. So that's something that you might want to think about. And that's one of the things which I thought about, because the whole topic of this forum is innovate, which means that you want to have an entrepreneur, and there are so many women entrepreneurs, but you just kind of hit the stage where you cannot grow anymore, or you are faced with so many difficult questions. So that may be a good idea to sort of ask for the advisory board. So I'm just going to shut up and open up to the floor. I just kind of shared some of the experiences that I have and how I see the role of the women in the board. Any questions? Okay, let's start off from there. I think you can just, how do we do this? How do I take questions? Are you going to say it in Arabic or in English? English. Why don't you just tell me? Yeah, I'll repeat. Yeah, I can repeat the question. How do we do the Q&A? Okay.
Thank you, Professor, for this great...
So, do I need this? I need this. Okay.
Just put it on its function.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, thank
Please.
you, Professor, for this, for sharing your experience. My name is Abir Al-Muhirbi. I work in an oil and gas company. When you talked about that in the board that you challenge by questioning some of the board members' decisions, but won't you be also challenged to put solutions or recommendation for your better way of doing things, or to challenge these decisions?
Yeah. I usually, whenever I challenge and ask questions, I usually come up with some kind of solutions. You know, initial, preliminary solutions. Well, you can do it this way, you can do it that way. And the reason is because this, the reason why they don't do it is because they don't know how other boards are done. So if you can just give them a little bit of ideas, rather than give them the whole solution, they can work on it. And we can just start the communication. And I usually work with the staff, like, you know, planning, corporate planning or something like that, because the board members are not the ones who are going to be working, you know, researching and things like that. So that's a very good way. I think that's a very good question, because you don't want to be isolated. You don't want to isolate yourself and say, she's a troublemaker. I mean, what you're interested is to make it happen and change or transform the board in the better way. And so you just give suggestions by asking questions and give the preliminary suggestions and go from there. Because the decision has to be theirs. Okay, let's go to the one in the back over there. Probably I'll take a few questions and then try to answer. Fine.
Good morning, Professor. My name is...
Hold on.
Oh. Good morning, Professor. My name is Julia Maris. I work for a French company dealing with military training.
Mm-hmm.
And in France, you know, we have implemented some quotas. And little by little, we have the feeling that there is a kind of deviation. And being a woman on board is kind of a new job. And you attend many boards. And we tend to forget you for executive positions afterwards. What is your view on that?
Okay.
Thank you.
I think there are two aspects to it. Is quota a good idea? And the second one is that what's the role of the board member, right? And the quota, I sort of go back and forth. I used to be pretty much against it. And because, you know, once you force something, you always end up with having the complaints coming, well, she's not, you know, qualified. But simply because she's a woman, she gets elected. But if something doesn't move at all after 2 decades, I think that may be a good idea to give it a try. So that's where I sort of go back and forth. The second question, the role of board members is quite complicated. So, I mean, I am on the board of 4 companies, which is too much. I mean, I'm just going to resign from one. And, you know, they are in the process of having 2 independent board members. And so, you know, I tried to get out of one, but I couldn't. So I plan to do it, you know, and they know in June that's what's going to happen. But you really need and I think each board member is different. depending upon her or his expertise or experience, you can just do the executive monitoring much better for this company than that and so forth, or you may need to do a lot of studying and research to find out. So you have to remember, it's not just, you're on the board, go to the meetings. And in addition to this executive and monitoring, since I'm very much interested in the global talent and people, I sort of offer that I can give some seminars, workshops for the women working for the corporations, or I need some opportunities to meet with the younger people rather than just the board members. Board members are board members, but what's going to happen to the company is much more of young talents, and so I would like to have a direct contact with them and trying to share some of the things that I do have as a vision and to find out what kind of vision they have. They feel good about working for the company or not, because after all, as we talk about so many times, it's the people. Whether you share the vision of the company and the purpose of the company or not, that's going to be translated into performance rather than the number of, female or whatever. So. Okay, let's go to over there.
おはようございます。
Oops. Sorry. Hold on.
おはようございます。私の名前はミラです。
はい。
I'm the CEO of the Deals TV. It's a pleasure to meet you today.
Thank you.
If I actually have two questions. If you sum up your leadership ideas throughout the years into 3 bullet points, what is the important 3 ideas or 3 objectives or 3 tasks that as a woman in leadership have to focus on and advise other women? That's the first question. The second question is, what is the most difficult decision that you have ever made in your life in terms of board members or in terms of CEO?
Okay.
Thank you.
So the question was, what are the 3 things that I think are important for the women leaders or the board members and so forth? I'm not really sure whether there is that much of a difference between men or women. I think the first thing is like the vision, the direction, where you want to take the company or where you want the people to take. And the second thing is that let individuals shine. And by that I mean I'm very much interested in developing the individuals so that they can develop their capability fully rather than the organization per se. Because organization consists of individuals, and particularly so today, because things are changing so quickly, and you need to have individuals who can think and who can work together and who can collaborate and with their own skills. At the same time, they can make the best of what they have. And so I am trying to let the individual shine and develop themselves. And I really would like the organization to give them the opportunity to practice. Because individuals are important, but the organizations are the ones who could give them the opportunities to practice it. And I believe only through practice you can develop innovative capability in leadership. You cannot really learn what leadership or what innovation is all about unless you try it, unless you're given the opportunity to try, to practice. And I think that's a very important factor rather than you doing it. Vision, direction, you set it up, but make sure you create the environment so that the individuals can develop their capabilities, and you create the environment and the project, the structure so that they can collaborate with different kinds of people. Those are the 3 things. The most difficult position of the board, I guess that was Japan Post. That was a very political decision. the Japan Post was supposed to be privatized, and that was why I joined. But in the process, the administration changed, and so the politicians sort of changed the idea. And I heard from the president who hired me that they will stay. He will stay after that whatever decision. And 2 days later, I saw the news that he resigned. And I just couldn't believe, because he was essentially, the politicians said he's going to resign. I mean, they just sacked him. So I got really mad. And so I said, well, since he's the one who hired me, and I respect him, and I really wanted to work with him to go to the right direction, I will resign too. And the funny thing was there were other outside board members, the CEOs or the chairman of the private companies. And they were they shared the same empathy with me, because they essentially joined because of him and the privatization. But they could not leave. I was the only one who left with him. Because if you are talking about the organization that you are a chairman of, if the Japan Post or the politicians hate you, you're going to be in big trouble. But I was sort of independent. I really didn't have any organization or company to take care of myself. So I was ready to, I was prepared to do my own thing. So that was the most difficult thing, but I would say that was what it was. And one other thing is that I try not to stay with the company too long. I usually stay about 3 years or so, sometimes 2, because once you get too, and there are 2 schools of thoughts. If it's too short, you don't really understand the business. The other school of thought is that you get too close to them. And so I said, well, in my case, it's either like 3 years or so, or at most 4 years, unless something really drastic happens and they lost another person or something like that. So let's see. Let's come back to the lady with glasses in the middle.
Thank you. My name is Gada Casey. I'm the general counsel and company secretary for a local family holding company, Siddiqui Holding. We're mainly known for the luxury watch and retail business. And we're really going down the path of corporate governance and implementing that structure for the company. And so this is a brand new position for us. My question is really how for men or women company secretaries that you've worked with, what were some of the things that they've done that have really helped to innovate the boardroom?
That's a very difficult question, because first of all, as far as I know, in the Japanese corporations, I don't think we have any general counsel as a board member. And the legal positions are just still this sort of staff position. And so I don't know too many of those, first of all. The second of all, the legal and innovation is a little bit, it doesn't quite go together. And the only thing that I could think of is that we had a meeting very recently about this consumer packaged goods company, and general counsel just came in, because there are so many things which may, I mean, the risk factor is so high. So it's much more like a compliance rather than innovate. The role of the general counsel is. And just make sure that the other board members or the CEOs or CFOs or whoever are aware of what kind of risks, what kind of legal implications there are. So that doesn't quite sound innovation per se, but at least that's enabling the innovation to go smoothly. So I would say it's much more like make sure that the innovation is okay, and it can be tested in the market. I hope that answers your question. Let's go to the one in the back.
Professor Yoko, such a delight to have you back in Dubai.
Thank you.
And thank you for your very insightful comments. Lubna Qasim from Emirates NBD. I'm also a Group General Counsel and Company Secretary. You spoke about grooming and probably training women so they're more qualified to sit in boardrooms. I don't often hear about men being trained. I don't often hear about how is it for a boardroom of men when a woman arrives, because it does change the dynamics. It does also change the language they speak in, because then they're also far more careful because there's a lady in the room. And I think it's extremely critical that it's about inclusiveness. And of course, you know, we work very hard in training and grooming the women so they're qualified to sit in these boardrooms. The question really now is, we really need to get the men groomed so they are prepared to, whether it is listening to a lonely female voice in the boardroom or including her. And I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Sure. I think I agree that when we are talking about the inclusiveness of the women, men are the ones who really have to work on. And because they don't know what to do with them. And we just started working on them. And I think in particular in Japan, there are quite a few men, man CEOs, who see the issue of diversity as a competitiveness issue, an innovation issue. Because for innovation, you need to have a different views. And if you consist of these, Japanese men, 60 or 65 or older, spending the whole career in the same company, there's just no way that they come up with anything new. So they see that particularly the top management or CEOs who are aware of the need for innovation and aware of the reality of global competition, they see the need of diversity and inclusion as a very urgent issue. The question is, what about the other members? But the CEOs of the top management is by far the most important factor. So once you get them on board, you're much better off. But I mean, I can share with you the very recent, very disappointing experience. I was talking, because of this governance code things, we're supposed to have just outside board members and outside auditors are supposed to have informal meetings. And we talked about that diversity because this is the company that's really trying to introduce diversity issues. And so I was there, and there's this guy, the academic who just joined the board as an outside board member, saying that, rather than just having women, and they were talking about the diversity sort of team or the special section for diversity. And he says, well, it's got to be more women rather than men and women. And I said, oh, give me a break. I mean, those are the days over. And so I said, well, recently it's much more men, and at least half and half, the members, rather than the board. If we are dealing with the diversity issues, because men are the ones who really need some training and some experience and so forth. And I'm not really sure whether I convinced him or not, but a lot of Japanese companies used to be. They just put all the women into one section and say, well, we are doing diversity. Let them develop a new product kind of things. But those days are over for quite a few of them because they realize it doesn't work that way. Innovation comes with different groups of people and different ideas. And then I said, if you go, I said, there's a generational gap. I mean, all the members there were like 60s or over. I said, well, there is a generation, the change in social values and things. So if you go out on weekends, you see more daddies with the kids. And a lot of daddies, taking their kids to school in the morning. And so, I mean, the work-life balance kind of things are very different today with the 20s and the young couples. And one of them said that, I know because my son is that way, and I hate it. And I said, oh, gosh. I mean, if these people think this way, and we have a long way to go. And as long as, I mean, they can't really take it, the changes among the younger generation. But that gives me the hope, because the younger generation obviously think along, in the same way as everywhere else. So they are much more receptive, and because they go to school together and they share a lot of things together. So they think, the young men think that work-life balance is as important as, young women. So I'm hoping, that the things will change. I can just take one more question, okay? Because you go like that.
Such a pleasure listening to you. I'm Yogani Bhatia, the Regional Manager for SEG Middle East, which is a Society for Exploration Geophysicists. Now, this is more a candid question. Is there a piece of advice that you would give for us, for women who serve boards and are a part of boards? What is the candid advice that is not in a textbook or in a document that teaches you how to be a productive board member, or what is the best advice to run a board, but more a candid advice?
Okay. I said, ask fundamental questions. And another piece of advice is, don't believe anything they say. I mean, that's all. Thank you very much.